Hi there, and welcome to the Curious Collective podcast. Conversations designed for the veteran and first responder community to bring awareness to those holistic practices that help us live our best life. So tap into the wisdom and knowledge of our guests to heal, transform, and live as your true soulful self. So I am very honored to have with us today the amazing Lex Reilly, who's coming to us all the way from Norway, I think it is. Norway?
Yeah. Norway.
Welcome, Lex. So I actually met Lex, I think it was about 4 years ago. I was looking for a veteran facilitator to run breath work for a retreat that we're running. And someone introduced me to this guy named Lex. I'm like, Lex, that's an interesting name. And we met over Zoom, and then we met at the event, and we've been friends ever since. So welcome, Lex. It is an honor to have you.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks.
So Lex was actually the first breathwork session I ever did 4 years ago. Had never done it before, and we were up at Veterans Retreat in Gympie, up on the hill, and yes, I've been hooked ever since. So thank you for that amazing introduction to that. So Lex runs a business called Compelled over there in Norway, but I'm going to hand over because he can explain way better. So can you please share with our listeners what it is that you're actually doing in the world right now and what's making your heart sing?
Okay, I'll go straight to what makes my heart sing, and that is nature connection. And
Mm.
what that looks like in a practical sense for me, and the way that I like to foster that connection is there is an element of skill and awareness. And when these two things come together for me and the majority of my clients and the people that I meet, those two can be just powerful ingredients to foster connection with nature. And I kind of like to explore nature in the concept of inner nature and outer nature, because we are from the wild. We're an animal. Our origins are animalistic. Whether we consider ourselves so refined that we're above that or not, we're still having instincts and responses and primal urges. And that's what is in us in that regard is mirrored in the wild. But so that there's an awareness of things, like what what's my hormones, what's my instincts, what's my drivers, how does that change within me, and how is that different within the different within our species.
Mhm.
It can be similar to other species, but then what is there in nature that I kind of need to know, or that I should know skill
Mm.
wise, so I'm not so foreign to the wild, so I'm not a tourist. I'm someone who is actually repatriating to my home, which is the wilderness.
Wow, I've never looked at it like that before. My next bushwalk will be totally different.
That's why I'm here
For
to
those of you
to
that aren't watching the video, and you probably should jump on, Lex is literally sitting in paradise. When he
mm,
set up his camera, is like the most beautiful crystal clear waters you've ever seen, and he's sitting like on a rocky outcrop. Oh, where are you in the world? Can you tell us what that is that we're looking at if we're on the video?
so I am about it's roughly over 350 kilometers inside the polar circle. So I'm kind of at the edge of the world. I don't actually believe the world has an edge, but you know what I mean. So like this is almost the kind of, yeah, the fringe of where humans is living. Most things here is the most northern things in the planet. The most northern Burger
Mm,
King is a 5 hour drive southwest.
mm.
Um, we have the most northern ice hotel, the most northern everything. Um,
Now you're the most
and
northern Aussie living over there.
I don't know if I can claim that title. Actually, there's some Aussies that have infiltrated the edges of the planet. I'm definitely one of them. I'm definitely one of them.
It's so great to have you on here. And so this
Yeah.
compelled, what are you doing with that over there?
Yeah. So at the origin of compelled is basically to do with nature as a teacher and a healer,
Mm.
Mother Earth, and not necessarily just in this kind of hippie way, but in this way that I have some duty and some responsibility to learn how to be safe in nature, to learn how to take other people into nature safely, and to learn my local environment. But what I'm doing at the moment is I'm creating some experiences in the Arctic, which is more looking towards 2024 for commercial availability. But I'm also doing some workshops in Sweden and in Serbia as well. And it's all around this modalities for nature connection.
Mm. That sounds amazing. And I loved before how you referred to nature connection as the internal and the external. I haven't explored that before because I know we can't connect to our external in depth until we have connected with our internal, really.
There's a super interesting reference from a book that comes to my mind now, and that was it wasn't until maybe, let's say it was the 1930s, or could have been the 1950s, something like this, that there was like a formal recognition that in biology and in maybe zoology, that animals in the zoo, so animals that are removed from the natural environment, do not behave the same as animals in their natural environment.
Mm.
So up until then, it was just assumed that the gorilla or the lion or the elephant, whatever in the zoo, does the same thing in the zoo that it would in the wild.
Mm.
And then when people started focusing more on, okay, well, what's the sort of environmental input into these animals? Well, they have a territory to maintain, they have a different social structure than what they do in zoos, and they have different energetical demands. And if I look at that quote and I look at the animals in a zoo, I think, yeah, that makes sense. And then if I look at myself as a human animal, I think, oh, that's uncomfortable. That's uncomfortable to
Yeah,
think about that.
yeah. Especially like, all those years caged in a job perhaps where you weren't able to be the roaming nomad that you are now.
Mm, mm.
So I would love if you feel, comfortable to share, how did you actually get to be sitting in that beautiful, majestic place you are now? Like, what was your journey from the start until now?
Mm. That's yeah, that's a deep one. Um, if I look at the thread of nature connection, so when when towards the end of my military career, I was you could watch like an implosion, a man imploding, and therefore an element of destruction and things just collapsing, my career, my relationship, my ability to father, my ability to function and just take care of myself, all that sort of stuff imploded. And then I was in a very sad, lonely place, and I kind of knew the direction that was going to take me in. And I knew that I had to redirect that somewhere else. And I went into the wilderness just on a bit of a whim. And then when I was out this is in the New Zealand Alps, and when I was out in the wilderness with myself, I just realized that, okay, so my years in the military gave me an exceptional foundation to function in the wilderness, and also to be there. And uh, can reflect on the sentry duty when you're in the bush and
Mhm.
someone goes on sentry, and they're sitting out of earshot of the rest of the team, and they're just living in their senses. And we had the opportunity to just look at nature and to listen to nature, and you are the early warning for everyone else. You're basically like the bird on the edge of the flock, who flies first if there is a fox or a wolf in the grass. And that was actually a really special thing to do, to go and sit in the bush for 30 minutes, an hour and a half, whatever it is. You can't eat. All you can drink is water. You're not writing your notebook. You're not listening to a podcast. You're just living in your senses. And that's actually the most important thing for you to do in that moment. And while I was there, I never really appreciated any of that connection. And then afterwards, when I went to this sort of search and rescue mission for myself in the mountains, I thought, wow, I've overlooked this connection, but it feels pretty good. And I suppose over the years, I just started following that. And then people were interested in me supporting them to develop a relationship with themselves in nature. And then what I kind of observed was that I could see patterns in some of the people I was taking out where they were coming up against themselves. And let's say it was a limiting belief, but I could see that limiting belief in how they approached a field skill. And usually I do one-on-one or one-on-two, something like this. I prefer smaller groups. And then I started to see nature as a way for transformation for others, not just for myself. And I eventually studied in Australia in 2018, doing a certificate in outdoor leadership, I think it was, this sort of guiding, canoe, roping, this sort of stuff. And just kept on progressing further and further in that direction. And then my heart had told me for a while to dream big. And the dream was to come to Norway to study Arctic adventure tourism. And I was accepted into the university in the start of 2021. And when I left Australia, it was during the COVID travel ban. So it was like a bit of a ball tingling nervousness because I had to kind of step into a lot of propaganda and fear and stories around, well, you if you go to Europe, you're going to be in a body bag or something, or whatever sort of been sensationalized in the news, or if you won't get accepted into this country, whatever, blah, 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 all this sort of fear. And then I kind of stepped through that. And a lot of the questions that I had only answered themselves as I was moving forward.
Yeah,
I couldn't answer them in Australia. So it would only be when I got to the gate of a country that I could get let in, because the information was really difficult to see what was factual.
Yeah.
And then I left very committed. There was no option there was no flights back to Australia when I left. It was this
I remember
big,
when you
big leap.
left, because you're like, oh, I've got something to tell you. I'm kind of going to Europe. I'm like, it was very spontaneous from the friend's perspective, but then it was just like, no, you were committed. There was 100% in.
Yeah, I really had a lot of faith that it would just work out, but it was quite a nervous period of transition. Yeah.
And when you got there, what did you have somewhere to go to stay? Like, where did you have like a home base to do the studies from? You weren't in Norway originally, were you?
I went through Germany for a couple of months, and then I was approved, like with a couple of days notice, to immigrate to Norway, because it was this real thing that the government was reflecting of if they would let people into the country or not. So that was quite disruptive for my sense of calm. That level of uncertainty there, and sort of the research I've been looking into now with like inner nature is that it makes sense that something that threatened my sense of security, my ability to live somewhere. I'm not in a space in my life where I'm happy to just kind of backpack in any direction. I'm a bit more focused now and I want some stability. So it was unsettling, but reflecting on that, it makes sense, because the right to live somewhere is a important thing.
It's the ground under your
And
feet, isn't it? It's that root
yeah,
chakra
yeah,
energy. Mm. And that's your home now for the minute. And so when you got there, you did studies. What was that course you mentioned before?
So it's a bachelor in Arctic adventure tourism,
Yeah, I
and
didn't even know
I'm
that's a
2 years
thing.
down.
Wow.
It's probably yeah, I think it's very literally the only degree on the planet that I would consider that I could survive.
Yeah. Yeah. And have you enjoyed it so far?
I have not enjoyed having to chain myself to a desk every now and
Yeah.
then. I do not enjoy that. And I enjoy relevant literature
Mm,
but I've had to make my own effort to read literature that I'm passionate about. But I understand that uni asks people to go through a particular framework to, accomplish a qualification, whereas I am more interested in going moose hunting with, the sort of the old hunters, or
mm,
collecting berries, or reading about nature connection, or creating programs and stuff like that. University is a hard place for me to exist, but I need to make the course relevant to my life. I can't expect it to be relevant for me.
mm. I completely resonate. Study is not something that interests me either. However, I love the content that you're doing, and I love how it's going to be so beneficial to incorporate into what you're doing. So I remember seeing footage of you riding on the backs of horses doing, was it archery or something? You've gotten up to all sorts of adventures while you've been over there. I'd love to hear you share just a couple of them.
Ah, I think I was on the horseback in Sweden recently. I don't know if I was riding horses in up here for a while. But the adventures I've been on at the start of the year, with a team of Norwegian veterans, I crossed Northern Europe's highest plateau on skis with a sled behind us.
Oh,
We all
wow.
had our own sled in the team, and that was um, that was horrific.
Sounds exhausting.
So that was a genuine challenge, and it um, really prompted me to step up with my self-care, and to get almost more aggressive with how I manage my life, so that I've like religiously attended a mobility program after that course, after crossing the plateau, um, because my body was in agony. I was in serious agony. My back was excruciating, and um, generally it was difficult. It was absolutely beautiful. It was so beautiful. The team that I was with, I felt so supported, so supported. They spoke in English for me when, like, the vast majority of the time. They Yeah, I was just really, really welcomed. They supported me when I was struggling with my mind, when with my body. It was amazing, and just the scenery and the intention. It was such a powerful expedition, and it it was life changing for me, especially with this commitment to the mobility regime, because I've been in chronic pain for about a decade. And that has had moments where it has felt really asphyxiating and crushing my. I've held on to the dream that one day I would wake up and not be in the same pain that I've been in for a long time.
Mm,
And that dream is coming true now. It's like liberating. So
mm.
it's not a linear journey. It's not like I've qualified as non-chronic pain, but there is a reduction, and I can actually feel that I can move differently. And that is like a new lease on life. And
Oh, I love that for you,
that's
Lex. And
yeah,
it's
I
like,
feel,
mm,
I can express more in my body. I can move differently. It's like getting my body back, not in a sense like I'm holding on to the past, but of like weighing a certain amount or being able to bench press a certain amount. It's not like that. It's like getting my body back, as in I don't loathe how my body feels.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, the body keeps score. So even as you're doing that work on yourself over there out in nature, inner and outer, you're probably shifting a lot of the shit that has been holding in your body. So it's allowing you that spaciousness to heal as
I've got
well.
some I've got some shifting. I've got some shifting.
Keep shifting. You're doing well. So I saw some amazing footage at the end of last year, I think it was, or beginning of this year, of like a Viking ship looking thing. Is that another
Yeah.
little adventure you've been on?
Yeah, so that adventure is multidisciplinary. At the end of last year, I bought a 100-year-old traditional Nordlandsbåt, and the Nordlandsbåt is by design, it is a direct descendant of the Viking longship. And these boats here in northern Norway, because Norway is a very long country. I don't know exactly, but I think it's something like the distance from Oslo to Alta, which is where I live in the polar circle. I think it's the same distance or a similar distance from Oslo to Morocco, something like that.
Oh, wow.
So I could be wrong, but that's just a guess. But it is
Mm.
a long. We're in the Arctic Circle, and but northern Norway is already, it starts quite low, but it's already pretty high on the planet. So these boats was more reliable than anything else because there wasn't the rail infrastructure, there wasn't the road. Motors on boats in this sort of climate were not reliable, and I don't think that the economy supported that.
Mm.
So the sort of the backbone here has been the seas for a long time, and this Nordlandsport has been an amazing journey from finding it, on this sort of edge of the planet to then getting it seaworthy and then learning the intricacies of a square sail. I've never sailed a square sail before, and that has a lot of responsibility to just jump right into that because it's a two-person type of thing. It's not it's probably possible with one person, but that would probably lead me to um, a mental breakdown trying that.
Jump over the edge, see a boat.
Yeah, and but this summer I sailed, and I had some fellow adventurers, and that was, we were in a pretty remote part of the coast, and it was what I wanted because when there's no engine on the boat, we're the engine, and the wind is the engine. So we need to adjust our lives to what nature is doing, and therefore the tide rules our day and the wind's direction. And so we were sailing under the midnight sun. We were rowing for hours. We were sleeping in a traditional indigenous shelter called a lavu. It's what the Sami, and it's still used today by Sami and by hunters. It's quite a good shelter for these conditions. And I'm going out actually in maybe it's a week with, I've got two Aussies are coming out with me, and I've been dialing in on the cuisine of the sea. So the menu is looking like seaweed and mussels and fish, and maybe some blueberries and some other
Mm.
berries. So that's
Nice.
we'll be we'll be doing pretty well to live off and with the land and sea.
Mm. It would
Yeah,
be so majestic and silent out there, like when you're not rowing and you're not doing anything
yeah,
and there's no motor and it just would be so peaceful.
yeah. It is very peaceful, and I remember one of my guests was she was just sitting and watching a rock, and she brought coffee with her. I don't drink coffee, so I didn't really cater for any of that in the experience. So she brought coffee with her, and it took her like an hour and a half to make coffee, but she wasn't rushed. It was because she went and collected the stone from the beach, and then she grinded up her coffee, and then she collected the wood to make the fire to
Mm.
boil it, and that was an hour and a half. And it's usually something that in the morning she expects to get done in 5 minutes when she's back home,
Mm.
and it just invites a level of calm when your life is at the mercy of these rhythms.
Mm. Yeah, that's powerful because you do have to surrender to Mother Nature, really, because you can't control what's going to go on out there to some extent. Just got to go with it. But I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Those that are interested have to check out this amazing boat on Lex's social media.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
so
really
many more
interesting.
adventures to come. What is this that you're doing in February? Did you want to share about that on this call as well?
Yeah, yeah. So in February, I'm taking out a small team into uh, what where I'm really called to is to just go to places that is secluded,
Mm,
remote, isolated, where we're not competing for silence, where silence is the standard. And so we're going out. I'll take six other people, seven other people, and we will go and live in. The sun's just returning. The sun is just coming back that time of year, so it's a very magical time of year, and it is February can be a time of the year where you are kind of prompted to take absolute responsibility for your decisions because of the cold and the
mhm,
weather conditions. So I also want this to be very comfortable because that is important. So we're going to have a focus on what skills do we need, what actions do we need to take so that we're not suffering, so that we can actually feel good and warm and comfortable and have a bit of a laugh. And then also, yeah, let's go out into the cold. Let's learn what that feels like. Let's learn what we can do in this environment that can allow us to survive if the weather changes. Can we follow any animal tracks just out of curiosity? How do we start a fire? What is the snow like today? Because the snow changes like the same as you get the sort of surf report, there's a bit of a snow report, and there's a way to understand
Oh, wow, there's just so much to think about. And these
that.
people that you're wanting to take out, are you calling out to them knowing that the right people will come, or is it people from over here, overseas that are there? What's your thoughts?
Really interesting. I put the message out on Facebook with an expression of interest, and I had a couple army mates get in touch with me, and I'm really hopeful that they'll come out because one of the blokes has basically said, you know what, I've been working my ass off for several years. I'm feeling a bit disconnected. I'm feeling a bit I don't want to put words into his mouth, but from my memory, a bit kind of stuck with re-careering and a bit mundane. And he has the same kind of injuries that is common for ex-military, and he doesn't want to try to conquer the highest peak on the planet, but he wants to conquer a part of himself. And
Mm.
then um, it, what I want this experience to be is a combination of like wilderness skills and health and wellness. So for me, restore, explore, improve.
Ooh, I
We
love that.
Okay, I'll drill down to it a little bit. With everything that we do, there needs to be, and compelled, there needs to be an element of restoration.
Mm.
We need to get adequate sleep. We need to eat good quality food. We need to be feeling comfortable in our bodies and in the environment. And then with explore, we're going to explore the skills for that particular environment. And what I've seen is a lot of skills that I have, I've learned them because I've operated in different parts of the planet. There's a fundamental skills which you can copy and paste and that will work anywhere.
Mm.
So there will be general skills and then climatic specific skills. And then we'll also explore the area so that people get a real feel. And when I say explore, I mean, I am not into hiking. I am not into the idea of trying to go 10 to 20 kilometers a day quite quickly and stopping for a brief photo and a brief snack and power through. That's not me anymore. I'm far more interested in going 2 to 3 to 4 kilometers a day um, and going at a pace where I am in sync with nature. And the improve element is it's kind of impossible when you do those two things adequately. It's impossible to not see your own reflection.
Mm.
And then so I feel really welcome when a space is created that allows that. And that's what I create as well, so that we can see our own reflection and then maybe allow in a bit of discussion around that, a bit of compassion around that, or even just some tools to think, well, how can I think in a way in this environment? Maybe there's a challenge, maybe there's a micro crisis. How can I think in a way here that I can use in my daily life?
Mm.
How can I make a shift in my belief system, how I see myself, how I see the world, whatever it is that I'll take with me?
Oh, I love it. My Kate tendencies come into this, and seeing it is like the balance, the energetic balance within us is that yin and that yang, and a lot of those expeditions or hikes that are go, 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 do, highest peak, fast as we can, is lots of yang. But you're bringing
Yeah.
in that beautiful yin where it's about that reflectiveness and the being and the stillness and the contemplative side. So it's just, I think, creating that inner balance and the energetics of you that you do. There is no chance, but you can't like get to that sort of improved stage because it's just human nature.
Yeah, I've definitely been unbalanced in the vast majority of my life, with the yang and the yin. So it's something that's so important for me, and I'm putting in effort to have the equilibrium there, because it has been destructive. What's that word? Destructive. Is that the word?
Both destructive and disruptive. It's both.
Both will do. Both will do.
Yeah. So I love this for you. And I love that the listeners are hearing your journey, because they might get some inspiration out of, if they're feeling stuck in a particular way. It's like, don't you contain yourself to the same thing, doing the same thing and staying in this mundane pattern. Like,
Yeah.
go out and chase your dream, and have something that you can move towards, or even just get out in nature and see if you can find that connection. But you've been through it all and you've done it so far, and you're still on that journey. So if the listeners, if you could impart some advice that's just popping in right now that you can share with them, of, if they're contemplating or thinking about it or inspired by it, like what would
Yeah.
you say?
Well, I've got some interesting reflections coming up on like focus. So I've had challenges or issues or whatever you want to call them with alcohol, cigarettes, pornography, marijuana, overeating, avoidance, a whole bunch of sort of things that have limited my life or shaped me into a particular box. And what has been really interesting for me was I moved out into this. I moved out to an hour out of town to a village that, according to Wikipedia, has 114 people living in it. And I had, when there's intricacies I was learning the hard way. So in the spring, the 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 snow was melting underneath the ice on my driveway, and I had a heavy Chevy car, and so when the car broke through the ice, it broke through because there's like an inch of ice on the drive. Usually it's 3 inches, 2 to 3 inches of ice here, every road, everything, in the winter.
Wow.
And in the driveway, the car broke through, and it was like, then it broke through into this slushy, muddy water thing, because the temperature of the earth had defrosted. The earth freezes here. For definitely the start of winter, then it can fluctuate, but the start of winter is like the earth is frozen solid like concrete, the dirt. And so my car broke through the ice, and then was sort of having these issues in this slushy, muddy water. And then, so it was one wheel at the back. And then, so I jack up the car, put wood underneath it. I dig out the back wheel, I put it down, and then that's like an hour and a half, an hour, something like that. Because the first time I had that problem, it took a long time to solve. I had it multiple times, so I got better at it. But that was so difficult, like in the middle of nowhere, feeling alone, cold, it's dark, in this village with a small amount of people. And then, so I'm trying to solve where the car is bogged, and I lower the car onto the sticks, and then it just spat the sticks out. And then I try the same thing again, and then it just spat the sticks out again. And then I thought, shit, all right, what's the bigger thing here? And then I look at all the other tires in the car, and I realize, okay, so the other tires have also kind of melted through the ice as well, or broken through a little bit. So I need to free up the other tires to make as little resistance in all areas that the vehicle needs to go forward, not just the one that looks like the problem. And then so what I've learned now with things like the alcohol, the pornography, marijuana, Instagram is something that I'm really looking to refine my behavior with at the moment. But if I look at the alcohol specifically, that's not the only problem. There is other areas of my life there that are making that a challenge more than what it is. So if I say to myself, Lex, you got to stop drinking, you got to stop drinking, drink's a problem, or porn's a problem, or your screen time's a problem. Okay, cool. If I identify the problem and then I take a step back from that and I think, where can I help myself? Where can I invite in compassion? Where do I need to get someone else to help? What other tasks around this will help the other wheels in my life move more freely? And that's been a huge thing for me because I used to put a lot of pressure on myself to be like, whatever it is, fix this behavior, change this part of yourself, be less triggered here,
All the need to
communicate better in
do's.
your relationship. Yeah. And that's just it's just putting more weight in the car, which is sinking it even
Yeah.
more.
What a fantastic analogy to draw that from. It makes complete sense when you mention it like that.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and the awareness too, it expands, so you're able to look at the whole picture instead of just one component of it. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. And so if the listeners want to find out more about you, I'm going to have all your information in the bios, but if someone in particular is keen to find out more about this expedition that you're doing with these 6 amazing people next year, what's the process for that? Do they just reach out to you on social media?
So Instagram is the most fun. YouTube is the most informative. So if someone wants to follow me on both, that's a really good way to get a kind of a feel of the direction I'm going in. And the Instagram, if someone just wants to follow me, send me a DM, hey, I'm interested in this. Like, okay, cool, we'll take it from there.
Awesome.
I've got other stuff as well. I'm doing men's work in Serbia where we're combining this is a real focus on the inner nature, right? So the warrior's edge, and I feel like I have suppressed my warrior energy, an element of my masculine essence, and that has not served me, and it's not served the people around me. And I realize I'm not the only man having that challenge. So myself and another facilitator, Hart, um, we are creating an experience in Serbia where we are combining combat shooting as the tool for the modern warrior, and self-development, men's work, the sort of holistic approach to masculinity and also femininity, because we need to have an element of that within ourselves to be whole. Otherwise, we're not whole. We're just unbalanced. And I have felt that and done that for a long time.
It's an evil one that when you suppress one side of it. I'm a female who lives a lot in my masculine energy, so for me to embrace
Yeah,
my yin as well has
yeah,
been an interesting challenge. So I do feel components of that over here in my world as well.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you do invite it in, or even contemplate it, it's a game changer. It changes the whole trajectory of where you're going. So I love that you're
Yeah.
doing this men's work. I absolutely love it. And that sounds amazing that you're collaborating as well with someone that's going to bring in that combat shooting element of it. That would be amazing. But thank you for
Yeah.
that you're doing this sort of work, because there needs to be a lot more of it, and to do it over there in somewhere, a place like that, wow.
I'm blessed. I'm blessed.
Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your life, sharing a bit of your story. And I, in the future, would probably like to have you back on, maybe after you've run some of these amazing adventures, to hear more about it.
Yeah, that'd be really cool to come on again. That would be very interesting, actually.
Mm.
Let's do that.
Thank you so much. Anything else you would like to leave the listeners with before we part ways today?
Nah, that's it. Thanks, Katie.
All good. Thank you so much, Lex, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Yeah. See ya.